Lois and Ryan Murphy, married for 5 years, represented a union that at first glance seemed to be the epitome of prosperity and marital happiness. Ryan, a successful businessman and owner of a chain of electronic stores, proudly showcased his business acumen. Lois, on the other hand, was an undeniably talented graphic designer whose creativity and aesthetic sense were widely recognized in her professional circle. However, beneath the surface of this perfect image lay a profound imbalance. At the beginning of their marriage, Ryan had asked Lois to give up her promising career to dedicate herself to their home. "My love, with my business growing, we need someone to take care of our house, create a refuge for us," he had said, his eyes gleaming with persuasion. Lois, though hesitant, complied with the request, believing that such a sacrifice would strengthen their marriage. "I just wanted the best for us, Ryan," Lois remembered saying when doubts about her decision haunted her. "And I thank you for that, dear. You make our home a wonderful place," Ryan replied. But in his tone there was a certain possessiveness, a satisfaction in having his request fulfilled. Over the years, Ryan became increasingly controlling and jealous. His comments about Lois' choices, from what she wore to the friendship she maintained, were frequent. "Don't you think that skirt is a bit too short for a married woman?" he would question, his critical gaze making Lois feel uncomfortable in her own skin. "I don't like that guy from the book club. He's too nosy. You should stop going there," he suggested on another occasion, disguising his words as concerned advice. Lois in turn tried to maintain peace by suppressing her own desires and aspirations. "Maybe you're right, Ryan. I don't want to cause problems," she would agree, her voice losing strength day by day. The financial stability Ryan provided did not compensate for the growing sense of confinement and loss of identity that Lois felt. On the rare occasions when Lois tried to express her dissatisfaction, Ryan would react defensively. "I'm doing all of this for us. Don't you see how hard I work to give us a good life?" he exclaimed, making it difficult for Lois to continue the conversation without feeling guilty. Thus, the Murphys' marriage, despite its outward appearance of success, was marked by growing tension and dissatisfaction. The combination of Ryan controlling and jealous behavior and Lois' silent resignation created an emotional abyss, highlighting that material stability was not enough to sustain the health of a relationship. He would innovate the way he threw things in Lois's face, to show how dependent she was on him. During a typical candlelit dinner, Ryan with a glass of wine in hand might say with a cold smile, "You must remember, dear, how lucky you are. Many women would love to be in your place without worrying about money or work." Lois, absorbing these words like thorns, would simply nod, feeling a tightness in her chest. The abuse was not limited to words alone. In moments of heightened anger, Ryan became physical in his displays of power. One night after a heated argument, he grabbed Lois's arm with force, leaving marks that she would hide under long sleeves. "You make me lose my temper, Lois. You need to understand what's best for us," he ranted, while she tried to break free from the painful grip. After these episodes, Ryan would often apologize. "I'm sorry, my love, I didn't mean to do that. You know I love you, right?" he would say, his voice choked with guilt and remorse. Lois, torn between love and fear, would accept his apologies, even though each incident left a deeper scar on her heart. Lois felt ashamed and alone in her situation. She struggled to maintain the facade of an ideal marriage, especially in front of friends and family. At social gatherings, she wore her brightest smile while concealing her true emotions. "We are doing great, thank you for asking," she would say with a cheerful voice she could barely recognize as her own. This duality between public appearance and private reality became increasingly difficult to sustain. Lois wondered how long she could keep up this facade, questioning the possibility of a different life, free from the cycle of humiliation and abuse. With each passing day, the need for change became more urgent, echoing in her mind as a silent cry for freedom. If you were Lois, would you endure so much? Would you subject yourself to the blackmail Ryan carried out in the name of what was practically a facade of a marriage? How long would you endure this reality? Leave your comments here. On Christmas Eve, Lois and Ryan's house sparkled with festive decorations and twinkling lights, creating a warm atmosphere for celebration with friends. Carla, Brandon, Mary, and Simon, each bringing the joy and warmth of the festivities with them, were warmly welcomed by the couple. The living room was filled with laughter and lively conversations. The group settled comfortably, wine glasses in hand, engaged in a whirlwind of topics. Ryan, how are the business affairs going? It must be a busy time with Christmas shopping, isn't it? Ryan, with a proud smile, replied, yes, it's going very well. We've been working day and night to meet the demand. It's a challenge, but I love every minute of it. His voice carried genuine enthusiasm that infected everyone. Lois watched the scene, a glimmer of happiness blooming in her heart as she saw Ryan so engaged and amiable in conversation. For a moment, she allowed herself to forget the tensions and difficulties of their marriage, absorbing the festive atmosphere. It's good to see you so passionate about your work, Ryan, she commented with a shy smile. Ryan looked at Lois, his eyes meeting hers. Oh yes, but none of this would be possible without your support, Lois. You are the rock of this house, he said, offering her a warm smile that she rarely saw. Simon, always playful, interrupted with a laugh. Look at that, Ryan getting sentimental at Christmas. Who would have thought? The room erupted in laughter, and even Lois found herself genuinely laughing, a feeling of lightness filling her being. Brandon, raising his glass, proposed a toast. To friends, family, and happy nights like this. Everyone raised their glasses in unison, echoing feelings of gratitude and companionship. As the night progressed, friends shared stories, reminisced about past moments, and made plans for the future. Lois felt enveloped by a sense of belonging and joy, a welcome contrast to the daily struggles of her married life. For a brief moment, she could glimpse the man she had fallen in love with, and that glimpse brought a ray of hope to her heart. As the night wore on, the cheerful and relaxed atmosphere of the Murphy Christmas celebration began to change. Everyone was immersed in lively conversations, laughing and sharing stories when a small gesture from Lois triggered a drastic shift in the mood. Lois, who had gotten up to grab a sweet from the coffee table, was abruptly interrupted by Ryan. With a tone dripping with sarcasm, he said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "Really, Lois? More sweets? I think you've had enough, don't you? We need to watch your weight." The comment dropped like a bomb in the room, abruptly silencing the cheerful conversation. Lois, surprised and embarrassed, stopped with the sweet halfway to her mouth, suddenly feeling exposed and humiliated under the gazes of her friends. Carla, always protective and straightforward, was the first to react. Ryan, that was totally unnecessary and rude. You shouldn't talk to Lois like that, she admonished, her voice filled with disapproval. Equally shocked, Brandon added, Dude, you don't say that, especially not in front of everyone. Lois is beautiful just the way she is. Simon and Mary exchanged concerned glances, equally uncomfortable with the situation. Mary, trying to diffuse the tension, attempted to change the subject. Lois, this sweet looks delicious. You always have great taste in these things, she said, offering subtle support. Ryan, realizing his guest's discontent, tried to justify himself. I'm just concerned about her health, he said, but his voice lacked sincerity. Lois, struggling to maintain composure, tried to shift the focus away from the awkward situation. It's okay, everyone, she said, forcing a smile. Ryan is just teasing, right, dear? Her look to Ryan was a silent plea for him to acknowledge the mistake. However, the damage was already done. The cheerful and relaxed dynamic of the evening had been shattered, leaving an air of discomfort and tension. The friends, though they tried to resume their conversations, couldn't forget the unpleasant episode, reflecting on the true state of Lois and Ryan's relationship. After Ryan's disrespectful comment about Lois's weight, tension in the living room was palpable. Carla and Brandon, uncomfortable with the situation, decided it was time to leave. Before departing, Carla approached Lois, speaking in a low but firm tone. Lois, you don't deserve to be treated like this. "Ryan is being toxic and you need to seriously think about it," she advised, her concern evident in her eyes. Brandon, supporting his wife, added, "We are always here for you, Lois. Remember that." His voice carried the weight of sincerity and concern. Ryan, irritated by the intervention, responded curtly, "Don't meddle in my marriage. I know what I'm doing." Mary, who had been trying to keep the peace until then, felt compelled to speak up. "Ryan, this is not how you treat someone you love. We are genuinely concerned about Lois," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. The argument continued. For a few minutes, with Ryan insisting on his stance and Lois' friends clearly expressing their support for her. The festive atmosphere had turned into a minefield of tensions and accusations. Finally, Simon and Mary also decided it was time to leave. "Lois, we are here for you. Whatever you need, just call," Simon said, offering a sympathetic look. Lois, still in shock from the events of the night, thanked her friends, feeling a mixture of gratitude and sadness. "Thank you guys, I appreciate it very much," she managed to say, her voice almost a whisper. With the departure of her friends, Lois and Ryan were left alone, each lost in their own thoughts. Christmas Eve, meant to be a celebration of love and togetherness, had become a mirror of the deep cracks in the marriage. The solidarity of her friends made it clear to Lois that she was not alone, but it also emphasized the harsh reality of her relationship with Ryan. After the tense and worried departure of her friends, Lois found herself alone in her festively decorated home, now filled with an oppressive silence. The Christmas lights blinked sadly, reflecting her mood. Humiliated and with tears streaming down her face, she sat on the couch, the weight of the night bearing down on her shoulders. As Ryan ascended the stairs, clearly disturbed but without expressing any apologies, Lois remained motionless, lost in thought. Carla's words and the concern in Brandon, Simon, and Mary's eyes echoed in her mind. "I can't go on like this," she whispered to herself, a determination emerging amidst the pain. In the days leading up to this moment, in moments of clarity and courage, Lois had secretly begun to plan her departure. She knew she needed a change, but always found a reason to delay. Now, after the night of humiliation and the support of her friends, she knew it was time to take action. Rising with a newfound resolve, Lois quietly ascended the stairs, heading to the guest room where she had already hidden a suitcase. She began packing her essential belongings, clothes, important documents, a few personal mementos. As she packed the suitcase, tears continued to flow down her face, but now they were tears of a different kind, not just sadness but also hope. "I deserve better than this," she spoke to her reflection in the mirror, her voice firm despite the emotion. Ryan, exhausted and oblivious to what was happening, slept soundly in the room next door. Lois seized the opportunity to write a brief note, explaining her departure with no details, just the need for space and time for herself. With the suitcase ready, Lois took one last look at the house that had been her home. She felt a pang in her heart, but she knew she was making the right choice. Silently, she descended the stairs, opened the front door, and stepped out into the cold Christmas night, gently closing the door behind her. The moon shone in the sky, a silent witness to her journey toward a new life. On Christmas morning, as the sun cast its golden rays over the still sleepy city, Ryan awoke with his mind filled with thoughts about the events of the previous night. The house was strangely quiet, and he noticed Lois's absence beside him in bed. The sense of emptiness was undeniable, and he wondered where she could be. Before he could solve this mystery, his phone rang, breaking the silence. It was the bank, and Ryan's heart began to race. He was expecting news about an important loan for his electronics stores, a crucial step to expand his business. With a mix of anxiety and hope, he answered the call. On the other end of the line, the bank manager delivered the bad news he had feared. The loan had been denied due to some recent financial complications in his stores. Ryan listened attentively, his face paling as the manager's words echoed in his ears. Desperate and unsure how to face the situation, he asked the manager if there were any alternatives. It was then that the manager suggested a possibility that caught him by surprise. using Lois' credit as collateral for the loan. Lois has an excellent credit history, and this could be the solution to your problems, the manager said. Ryan, though relieved to have a potential way out, also felt uncomfortable with the idea. He knew Lois wouldn't be pleased with the decision, and it could spell the end of their already fragile marriage. But at the moment, he saw few options. After hanging up the phone, Ryan fell silent for a moment, reflecting on the situation. He knew he needed to talk to Lois about this, but he was unsure how to approach the subject. The memory of the harsh and insensitive words he had spoken the night before weighed on his conscience. With a sigh, he got out of bed and began to dress. He was determined to find Lois and have a difficult conversation about the loan as he prepared. He couldn't help but think of the irony of the situation. The same woman he had humiliated and belittled was now his potential financial salvation. Fate had an enigmatic way of weaving its webs, and Ryan was about to face the consequences of his actions. With a lump in his throat and a heavy heart of apprehension, Ryan roamed the house in search of Lois. Christmas morning was quiet, only interrupted by the gentle sound of a radio playing soft music. He opened all the doors on the upper floor of the house, but every room was empty. A cold shiver ran down his spine as he realized his wife wasn't there. With slow and uncertain steps, he descended the stairs, searching for any sign of Lois. The glow of the Christmas lights that still adorned the living room seemed somber now. His gaze finally stopped at the coffee table, where a white piece of paper was carefully placed. He approached and picked up the letter, his heart racing as his eyes scanned the handwritten words. It was Lois's handwriting, and he knew he was about to read something that would change his life. Instead of finding Lois, Ryan found a letter. In it, Lois described the reasons for her departure, highlighting the abuse she had suffered and the decision to divorce, encouraging Ryan to become a better person. The words felt like heavy weights as he read each line. Tears began to blur his vision, but he forced himself to keep reading. Lois described the suffering she had endured, the years of emotional and physical abuse she had hidden for so long. She spoke of the fear that had kept her a prisoner, the fear of her husband, the man she loved. The letter contained a mix of sadness and hope. Lois explained her decision to leave, to seek a life free from the abuse that had dominated their marriage. She encouraged him to reflect on his actions, to become a better person, and to seek help for his issues. Tears finally flowed freely down Ryan's face as he finished reading the letter. He was alone in the room, facing the devastating reality of his own cruelty. Lois' letter was a brutal revelation, an expose of the wounds he had inflicted on the woman he had vowed to love and protect. Ryan knew he could no longer ignore the truth. He had to confront his actions, and if there was any hope of redemption, he would need to seek help. With Lois' letter in hand, he felt the weight of his responsibilities as a husband and a human being. It was the beginning of a difficult journey, a journey to become the person Lois had believed he could be. The house that once echoed with laughter, conversations, and even arguments was now shrouded in deafening silence. Ryan, sitting in the living room, still held Lois' letter in his trembling hands. His eyes were swollen from crying, and his face was pale, consumed by disbelief. Incredulous and unable to contact Lois, Ryan found himself alone. He tried calling Lois' cell phone several times, but all calls went to voicemail. He sent desperate text messages, pleading for her to answer, but there was no response. A sense of helplessness overcame him, and he felt like a shipwrecked survivor adrift in a sea of uncertainty. Meanwhile, in a distant place, Lois was beginning a new chapter in her life. She had taken refuge in a friend's house, a safe place where she could finally breathe freely, away from the abuse that had suffocated her existence for years. There, she began to rebuild herself, rediscover her independence, and nurture her self-esteem. Every day, Lois grew stronger. She found support in domestic abuse victim support groups and started attending therapy sessions, taking the first steps toward healing. She reconnected with friends and family she had neglected during her tumultuous marriage. The story, which began with the shadow of oppression and abuse, ended with a ray of hope. Lois' courage was the ultimate focus of the story. She had faced her fears, broken free from the chains of abuse, and sought a better life. Her inspiring journey served as a reminder that even in the darkest of circumstances, inner strength and courage can lead to transformation. While silence hung in Ryan's house, a new narrative was unfolding in Lois' life, and although the future was uncertain for both of them, the contrast between their choices resonated as a powerful reminder of the human capacity to reinvent oneself, break free from the past, and seek a brighter path. That was the story. Thank you for watching until the end, and until next time.